Hey guys and gaggers. Today I'm going to be talking with fellow YouTuber Shawn from Koenji Shawn Reviews. Part one of our talk will be on this channel, and part two will be on the Koenji Shawn Reviews channel. So if you want to see the whole thing, you gotta visit both channels. So yeah, so we did a crossover thing. So I hope you enjoy it. Check it out.
What's your next video going to be on?
Well, the next video is going to be on Garo, like the first issue of Garo. And I'm going to talk about Shirato Sanpei.
What issue is the first? I think the earliest one I have, which I actually have on my desk right here, is
right here, 1960.
December 1966 is my earliest.
Okay, this is 1964.
Ah, okay.
September. And it's Sokango, first issue, but this is a replica. This is not the actual thing. I'm going to talk about that in my video. About how.
Yeah, I busted out Garo and a com for the question that the Garo or com question.
Oh, that's great. I should get, okay, let me get mine too. These are not mine. You know, like always, I'm
borrowing from
people,
better collectors.
Yeah, because I cannot afford. I'm like, I go crazy with the shopping only because I found these amazing deals, like crazy deals, where I decided I'm not getting any new comics, but I'm like, well, no, I have to.
They're too cheap.
Deals are crazy.
Yeah, I get obsessive about one thing that I'm into, especially if I want to make a video on someone. So my rule before was only buy what you're going to read, but
that's a great rule.
Out to the plus whatever you're working on at the moment. So like I'm working on Kaze Shinobu at the moment, or
somebody just posted something on, and it was on Twitter though. And I was like, I'm seeing him a lot. I kind of interested.
It's gonna be. I've been finding a lot of stuff. I even bought some like old Margaret that he had a release in. Some kind of tonko bones. No, a couple little bunkos, Holy 2, or a couple other little horror bunkos from the early 2000s or late 90s that he had like one shots in. And then, of course, Ryu, the strongest man on the face of the planet. And I just ordered Tiger Mask the Star. So I got a good collection of everything together. Now it's just putting it all together. I got the art book, but then putting it all together. But usually I don't do that. Usually I'm trying to buy what I want to read. But then if I'm going to make a video on something, I'll just start buying anything I can find.
See, I know exactly what you mean. It's like I mostly focus on stuff I want to read. But like you, I have a million interests, and so I don't always have like that video in the pipeline, but I'm like, it's gonna happen in the future. And so like I started this mermaid book collection with I
remember you mentioning that, yeah.
With just these two. These are umezu.
Yes.
They're both umezu.
Yeah, and the one on the right, I made the
Hangyojin.
Yeah. Maybe I don't have it, but I've definitely seen it. It's from that Sun Comics series, kana.
Yes. This is version. So these are both like the two kinds of fish people and I'm gonna do research on them. But it was when I was thinking about what to research next, I was like, you know what? I happen to have both of these, and then I kind of looked at some other stuff I had, and I was like, oh, there's mermaids here too. Moro Hoshi, which I need to do a video on.
Yeah, that's important.
He loves mermaids. Tezuka has a couple mermaids. I found some Ishinomori mermaids. Of course, like the mermaid story that stuck with me was the Takahashi Rumiko mermaid series, because I saw the animation way back.
Ah.
And this is kind of what expanded my mermaid interest, because in hers, you know, the people eat the flesh of the mermaid and then they live forever.
Ah, yeah, I'm not familiar with it.
See,
Ah.
I thought she made that up, but it's based on a Japanese legend. There's an 800-year-old nun,
Oh.
became a nun afterwards, but she's kind of guilt, survivor's guilt kind of thing. But sometimes she's portrayed as an evil character. She shows up in Hinotori. So how I found out that it wasn't her story, that it was actually this folkloric thing, was there's a freaky newer series. Do you know that comic series Eat Man?
Eat Man.
It's a 90s, and it looks 90s. Like
Mm,
the guy,
maybe
the
not.
character, he's very got that Trigun vibe.
Yeah.
So that guy made this new, a little bit more moe designed kind of horror series called School Ningyo. And so School Mermaid, and it's really great. I mean, it does feature these kind of mermaid-like beings, but it's mostly like how humans are the scariest monster. Yeah. But in that, they mentioned both the Hans Christian Andersen Little Mermaid and this Yao Bikuni story, and I'm like,
From 800
oh
years ago.
that's a real thing. That's not, she didn't make it up. And so, yeah, so it's.
I have one mermaid thing I just remembered.
Oh, really?
Hanawa Kazuichi has a mermaid story in Tsuki no Hikari, or I'll look it up and send you the title. Double check later.
Awesome. You know,
And
that reminds me, like on the Discord, I mean, I should definitely just throw that out there. But I mean, it's not like, yeah, I should throw that out there.
Throw it out there, because I got so many recommendations for car crashes, like vehicular homicide as a plot twist. People were just sending me one thing after another, and now I have so many things bookmarked that I already have. I don't need anything else. You know, I didn't think it was going to be as common as it is, but mermaids as well. The Hanawa, I'll definitely send you a link to, or the title of that one.
Oh yeah, please do. Please do.
Yeah, it's grotesque. You know, the Ero Goro grotesque. I think it's trying to make the mermaid come back. The prince finds the mermaid, wants to marry her, so he chops her in half and murders a child and puts her body on the child's legs. And
jeez,
yeah,
but that's
wild.
but that's kind of interesting, because like in the Hans Christian Andersen story, there is kind of this if you want to return back to mermaid form, you have to kill the prince or something like that. There is this kind of thing that you don't see in the Disney movie, and that also shows up in that School Ningyo series.
Ah, okay. Be a good cross reference.
Yeah. So it's like that School Ningyo is the perfect focus, because it ties together like manga history. I mean, it definitely, there's some things connecting there from earlier mermaid stories, and then you have the two, like the Hans Christian Andersen, which is like the most well-known story, and you have that folklore thing coming in, and folklore is kind of my thing. So
Yeah.
I just now, right before this, sent off my research paper on Oni in Kimetsu no Yaiba. Finally.
Oh, nice.
That out, and I just have to wait to see if they go, all right, let's go with it or not.
Oh, nice. I haven't read it, only watched some of the anime because my daughter likes watching them. But although she's only 7, but you know,
my daughter just does not. She's like, there's too much violence. Okay.
My kids are the opposite. Well, my 5-year-old boy, he's like, the more violence, the better. I'm always trying to turn stuff off for him.
I was more like your kid. I mean, I wasn't like just for like the violence, but it's like for the fear factor. Monsters have always been my thing since.
Oh yeah.
I think that's because I have terrible parents.
Oh yeah, I think I watched Evil Dead when I was in 5th grade. like on video or something. We had a VCR and we got to rent it. My parents never regulated what we rented at all.
Yeah, my parents didn't either. I mean, and we didn't have a VCR until everybody on the planet had one. Then my dad goes, "Oh, I guess this technology's sticking around."
Well, he saw the Betamax go out the window, so then he's
right.
like, I better wait on this one.
No, we had cable, which at the time, we're talking the 70s, at the time was HBO, which showed 2 movies a night.
Yeah.
One at 6, one at 8, and then the 6th one again at 10. And I would sneak down because our TV with the cable was in our basement, this huge playroom that had like a wet bar and dartboard. It was like a party room. And my parents were kind of partiers. But I would sneak down and watch scary movies. The first one was The Car when I was 7.
Oh.
And and my parents were watching The Omen, and I was about like 8 or so, and I was hiding behind the couch and watching it with them. And when the credits rolled up, it's about this, the son of Satan, this little boy, and my mom turns around and there's me like behind the couch.
And you freaked her out.
But I think
Nice.
because I never like went to my parents' bedroom and like, I can't sleep, I'm having nightmares. I never did that. I always like dealt with my pain like it's
just scary
in my own bed. And so I think they were like, I guess he's okay.
Yeah. I think that my parents are probably just too busy. They're weekend TV watchers, and they just let us watch whatever we wanted to watch.
I recently asked my mom, like, why did you get me a TV when I was in elementary school? Because I got addicted to late night TV when I was in like 4th or 5th grade, and which is, and I wasn't doing great in school anyway, so that's not going to help. So I said, what was I thought y'all got it cheap or something from a neighbor, and they're like, no, you kept bothering us during night fun times.
She's like, we just wanted to keep you away from our room.
We wanted to, distract you.
Reasonable enough. Put a TV in your room.
Yeah, either that or like buy a damn lock for your door. What do you think?
Yeah, right.
Because I can actually count the number of positions I've seen my parents have sex.
I've luckily never seen as much, but
well, just by me saying that, I've already put the idea in your head.
Yeah, I don't want it in my head, but luckily I was there's a big gap between me and my brothers and sisters, so by the time that they were leaving when I was younger, they were already kind of going off high school, leaving the house and stuff. So I had the basement rec room as my bedroom, so no one bothered me. I had like a whole basement like thing to myself, so they kind of just left me alone.
Oh wow, that's great. Yeah, I was kind of like that, as far as they didn't really know what to do with me, because I was so just like different. It's like I liked, well, the 70s, the like all the 1940s and 50s monster stuff, apparently like they were re-licensed, and there's information about it. I don't have it in my head, but like apparently like there was packages made for TV, and so like all the classic monster movies, in the 70s, they were shown on TV and whatever. And so like my generation was like, yeah, monsters. And when the monster books came in the library, I remember these picture books, werewolves, vampires, Godzilla, King Kong. You could never check it out because they were always already checked out, But very early on, I was into the werewolves.
That was a big boom though, especially for your age, because like me, I was born in 75, so most of my stuff is from the memories are from the 80s, right? Mid 80s and early mid 80s and on. But of course, in the early 70s, you had the spinning around head.
Oh, Exorcist.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Exorcist. I was just reading about this recently, 73 or something like that, and there's just such an occult boom after that. And in America and here as well, of course. that
Yeah,
you guys
but
got a
you
lot
notice
of
it's
the monster
different.
movies and horror occult stuff.
But you notice it's different. Like there's a definite like occult vibe here that like exploded at that time. And the guy we like, Koga Shinichi, like
Mm.
he definitely rode that wave with Eko Eko Azarak.
Oh
But
yeah.
the actual like when we were kids, I mean, we actually believed that there was the devil, and
Hmm.
we actually believed that don't play around with them Ouija boards, boy. You
Yeah.
better not play around with them Ouija boards, son.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
that kind of world, and so definitely felt an actual danger. And part of the stuff that I study now, monster theory, uh, some of the ideas that have come out lately is like it doesn't matter whether monsters like actually exist or not. What matters is that they had actual consequences,
Mm.
people's belief in them and stuff. And so that's, I think that's one big difference between the occult movement here, where I think people did put belief in things like curses because
Mm.
they've always had curses.
Yeah.
This is a dark place we've moved to, Sean.
Yeah, there's a long history. I've read enough Mizuki Shigeru
Yeah,
to have a pretty good library in my mind of all the different types of curses.
that's right. So, that it was already primed for that. But it's different when, I guess it's just a little different. They're like The Exorcist is scary, but they're not feeling like there's this real connection, where, as like I was told, the older priest in The Exorcist is based on an actual person who did the exorcism of the boy who moved from Georgia to Missouri. And my mom's family's from Missouri, and that older priest that it's based on is a friend of my grandmother's.
Mhm.
And so it's like, oh, that makes it super real.
Super close to home, right?
That's right. So it's like, oh, shoes. That's shoes is
Yeah.
the word I use.
By the mid 80s, when I was a kid, the whole thing with between horror movies and D&D boom and everything else was, maybe it's because I grew up in a pretty Christian community outside of Seattle. I mean, most people went to church and stuff like that, was that, that you didn't mess around with it because the devil was real, I
Did y'all
remember.
have the chick tracks?
What was that?
The chick tracks, the little comic books.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
D&D and you. And then, and at the end, they're like, they start out with a nice game of role playing, and at the end they're like sacrificing people or something. It's like,
I
no,
remember
that
getting
never
off the
happened in our D&D sessions.
Yeah, I remember getting off of because I'd play with my cousins, but I had no friends that I played with. But I remember getting off the bus once, and an older kid knocked my D&D book out of my hand and called me a devil worshiper. And I was maybe a second grader, a third grader, and he was probably fifth, around there or something. And I remember, getting all upset, wondering like, what the heck, man? It's just dragons and orcs, But yeah, it was a whole thing back then.
Yeah. It was a big thing. And there was a guy on the TV. And this is the hilarious thing, okay? I loved Kiss. The first album I bought when I was 5-6 years old was Kiss Destroyer. It took me an hour, okay? I was at Kmart for like an hour because I was like, I don't know music. And so I'm just looking at the cover, which is this fantasy cover with these 4 weirdly painted dudes in these platform shoes. And I'm like, yeah.
This could be for me.
That's right. This is... And then this guy on the TV who is doing all this things about how rock and roll is the devil's music and stuff like that. He explained the lyrics, the very sexual lyrics, and I was like, I never listened to the lyrics, and now I'm only thinking about sex. Thanks a lot, Mr. Christian. At 8 and 9 years old, I got Love Gun for my like 8th or 9th birthday, and maybe 7th birthday, because I think it was 1976. It came with this pop gun. Those, you can make those paper poppers.
Yeah, the little poppers.
It came with one shaped like a gun, and you do like this, and it made like a shooting sound.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, we used to make those in school. Me and my friends, I think we would try to sell them to other kids. Make little origami things and try to sell them off to other kids.
But he was like, oh, that song Plaster Caster is about a groupie who goes around making plaster casts of all these rock stars' dongs. And I was like, oh, people do that? And like, thanks for warping my mind. You know, it's like,
at that age, you don't know what you're listening to, because mine was
right.
like 84, 85, like Beastie Boys License to Ill, or, you know, Bon Jovi, or whatever, some hair rock stuff. And I had no idea what the Beastie Boys were rapping about. No idea, because I wasn't from the city. I was from outside of Seattle. You know, I don't know what people in Brooklyn talk like, you know?
Even my parents' generation, the music, like Little Richard, good golly, Miss Molly sure likes to ball. I mean, oh, you mean like ballroom dancing? What are we? You know, all
not that. Likes to party.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, too much information though as a kid, you know.
Yeah, I think I was the same thing, just taking in.
So to kind of bring it into like what we both love to talk about. So what was your entry into comics?
You know, my entry into comics was late. I mean, of course, when I was a kid, I'd go to the local supermarket to get comics and stuff, but more as far as especially American comics or Japanese comics, it was more anime and stuff on TV. My older brothers were into Go-Go Speed Racer. I would wake up early in the mornings before school to watch Star Blazers. And living outside of Seattle, the only time I had a chance to buy comic books was once every couple of months when we went to Pike Place Market downtown Seattle. That has a big comic book shop there, and my mother would give me $5 to buy comics. And so because of that, and living out a bit rural, a little bit in the beyond the suburbs of Seattle, then I really didn't get a lot of access to comic books. But it was more when I got older, around 19 years old, when I started becoming interested in studying Japanese. I had some Japanese friends. Then I started to hunt down manga to learn Japanese. And I think that we've talked about this before, but started off with some, you know, simple stuff like Doraemon or Sazai-san, or some picture books and stuff like that, just to try to learn Japanese. And then of course, after coming to Japan and stuff like that, then I had all of this access to just a world of manga. So I have big gaps.
What were the comics though that you were getting when you had your $5? What were the comics you were getting?
God, you know, at that age, I remember I was into some of the Marvel stuff, but I remember always being into weird stuff. I remember I liked the Vietnam stuff, like the Nam, because I think my father liked war movies a lot, so we always had like Full Metal Jacket or Platoon or these movies around the house. So I think it was kind of rubbed off on me. And I was always into the old Zap comic stuff. So Fritz the Cat, anything weird like that I can get my hands on, I would just, and that was probably reading very inappropriate stuff at a very early age, because they're all about, you know, Robert Crumb stuff and stuff like that. They're all about, you know, women, pot, and hippies and everything else. But for some reason, I just always loved those drawing styles when I was a kid.
But there's, you know, I'm going to be honest, it's like because comic book stores were a little bit loose, and like Japanese stores were a little bit loose. It's like I had access to stuff that, you know, that the general community would frown upon, but like I handled it fine. You know, it's like it didn't warp my brain. Of course, you know, like I had a lot more access to pictures of titties.
Yeah.
You're supposed to have, but kids nowadays, they, you know, it's not hard to.
They have a smartphone in their pocket from 10.
That's right. So, you know, I think that the fact that violent stuff is so easily attainable, and that we're so afraid of sex, that something's really wrong with the psyche, you know, of our culture, because it's like it's avoiding it and not talking about it. That's really what messes people up.
The repression of it all.
What the repression, also like not knowing what it's about and what to expect, and that's where you get these people who think that they're owed some kind of experience, and when they don't get it, they go a little bit cuckoo go nuts. But I'm like you. I started with like I had a few books. Like I didn't have any comics that I could continue with. I didn't. It was like at the pharmacy. If I was sick, I could maybe cajole my mom into getting me a comic. And of course, I'd spend way too long going, I don't know which one. I guess I'll take this one.
Yeah. So you have one random issue of Fantastic Four or something like that you like the cover or something.
Yeah. But Spider-Woman there was a book with the first like 8 issues or so of Spider-Woman and her debut. And it has a very occultish vibe to it. And it's interesting because this is years later. Do you remember that book? I mean, you know Lovecraft, of course, and you know his book, the Necronomicon, the fake book. But there was a paperback put out by this guy named Simon. It was a little black paperback, Necronomicon, and has all these spells and stuff in it, and all these things in it. And the guy who wrote that book wrote another book about the making of that book. And he mentions, I mean, he worked at this magic store in Manhattan called Magical Child. And apparently it was like the place to go for people to come and learn pagan magic and stuff like this. And he said the editors and writers of Marvel were there every week in the 70s. And that makes total sense. You have all these occult related characters. You got like Ghost Rider, and you have the son of Satan and Damon Hellstrom, and you have all these kind of occult characters. They're totally riding that post-exorcist
occult wave.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, the kids were just devouring, kids and young adults, and probably adults alike, were just devouring up anything occult at that time, whether it be there or over here as well.
Well, one thing like that I learned about through Monster Theory is like when it's a period of crisis, people need their monsters. And I think in the 70s, we're at the point where we want to understand our monsters, because before that, it was easy. Nazis are bad guys. Wow, no deep thought required. You know, at that time, is, you know, it was black, white. I mean, we know the truth that it's not always just black and white, but it was, you know, very, not a lot of people are going to argue with you, you know?
Whereas something like the oil shock, you don't really have a bad guy, or the, you know, like.
Well, according to my dad, it was Jimmy Carter is, you know, the Antichrist. So,
my dad probably would have agreed.
Yeah. My dad, like, was in the Marines, but he never talked about it, did not enjoy he could not wait to get out. And so, yeah, military movies or anything like that was not much in my, you know, in my area, but. Oh, but that time, what was freaky was that serial killers became like a real thing. And so I was sleeping with the lights off since I was a little kid, but suddenly around 9-10 years old, I had to have the light on because, you know, we had 30 missing and murdered kids in Atlanta. 79, 80, that area, that time, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I think like when Son of Sam, 70s, all these like, you know, you had the Amityville house, and you had, like, you know, all these stories of people killing their own families, and you had Charles Manson, and you had like, just like the,
my area, the Green River Killer in Seattle. We used to sleep with the windows open at night, and I remember my parents saying one time, like, telling my sister she couldn't ride her horse by herself, and telling us kids that we all had to close our windows at night because there was a murderer out there.
See, but I mean, that kind of stuff is going to unsettle you, but it's not just going to make you afraid. I think it makes you need to understand why people can do that to each other. And so I think that's when we turn to monsters. And what I love about some of these monsters I've encountered in Japanese comics is that early on they made some sympathetic monsters. They kind of looked at it from the other side, and the monsters are very internal. Like Umez, man, his stuff is all so internal.
Yeah. Yes.
There's a thing growing on my face, and and now it's a face, and now it's smiling, and now it's laughing.
Yes. And then other mangaka later all picked up those little pieces and adapted them to their own styles, and you see that reoccurring those themes, especially the Umez themes in some of the earlier horror mangaka, right?
Yeah. So let's see. What I like to do is it's going to make it easier for us.
Okay.
Editing wise, I should shut up and focus on you, and then we'll.
What we could. Yeah.
What do you have? If you have an idea.
No, I was gonna say, like, we can kind of keep all this stuff for however we want to use it, like chop it up, and then we can just also, because I know you have the big screen on your side, and then when we switch questions, we want to change it so that I'm small and you're big, right?
Right.
And on my side, it's just the same. It's just split screen. So with that in mind, I don't know. What do you think? Maybe do questions this way and then stop, and then do questions the other way.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah, but it's good plus it's good just to chat a little bit before we get to know each other a little bit better,
That's right. Yeah. Because I'm really excited because I'm a big fan of yours. And
I'm a big fan of yours. You know a lot about a lot more than I do. And you know a lot about different things than I do, which is always fun. I don't know a lot about like kashihon or about like the early shonen manga stuff. So it's great great watching your videos and stuff. Just dig them the most.
Well, I like the fact that you have a really good natural and a very good, like, quick, very punchy style, and you have really good insight, and you've got great taste, like just in like MANGATARO, man. If you would have told me that I was gonna meet ever another foreigner who was into MANGATARO, I would have like, yeah, right. I wanna see that crazy bastard.
I was telling my wife I might have more MANGATARO than any other Westerner or on the face of the planet.
It's true, because like I had maybe 5 books and I got rid of all of them because I got to a point where I'm like, nah, I'm done.
Yeah, they take up space, but I've basically got almost everything, except I'm missing like 1 or 2 volumes of a couple things. And then there's a couple newer things that started to come out, but they never got put into released as tankobon, because one was like a ripoff of Terrace House. And as you know, Terrace House has a horrible incident with the girl committing suiciding herself. So, like, I don't think that's ever going to make it to a tankobon now. I think they probably just cut that. So anyways.
Yeah. That, for me, it's like MANGATARO, man. That, it was kind of me, and I was a really young teacher at a special high school that's a lot of shut-ins, and some other kids who just can't go to regular school. Like they're in the entertainment industry, or they've had a history. In fact, one of my students was the vocalist of Dragon Ash.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
one that got arrested or one who didn't get arrested?
I don't know who got arrested. All I know is
I remember one of the guys. I want to say it wasn't the guy that's half, but I can't remember.
He's not his English is really good, but he wasn't half. But nobody in his class would ever show up because this school was kind of free. If you turned in your reports on time, you know, that's good enough. So a class like English conversation was superfluous to the kids who are just like, I just need to get my reports done, and I'm already working. So,
yeah.
And so it would just be me and him hanging out and talking about stuff. He would talk about Los Angeles and stuff like this. We both were in bands and we both had auditions for Sony around the same time.
Oh,
My band got like a triangle, which is like meh.
maybe, maybe not.
And then his band got a okay.
Oh, nice. And that was
It wasn't the same audition. It wasn't the same people. Like I'm sure he was already, you know, his band was already like people had their eyes on him. We were just like a band from Kanagawa, you know, who were. He said, "Your side guitar, we don't even know what he's doing there. He's just super, you know." And I wasn't a heavy metal singer. We were a heavy metal band, by the way. I was the vocalist because I can't play anything.
Okay.
But I kind of tried to move it toward grunge and stuff where I can actually like sing, you know, like there's more melody. And so, but yeah, that was a thing. All right, I'm gonna start asking you some questions. You better get ready.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it.
Get you ready. Do you have any manga tattoos?
Oh, that's a good question. I actually, my first tattoo I got when I was 18 is not from a manga, but it's Kuchikuri, a Robert Williams character from Zap Comics.
Oh.
So it's one of his like little characters, this smoking little cootie that would walk around. That was my first tattoo. And then later on that year, my second tattoo was the lines that Devilman's wings come out of. They go up and down. So I have these lines here that look like dumb tribal tattoos nowadays, but originally
but people, I think people in the know would be like, is that, you know?
Yeah, I was a big Devilman like anime fan. It was one of the first like cartoons that was, you know, or anime that was available at Blockbuster when I was a kid that, you know, that I could get, that I had access to. And I was it was one of the first times I had just seen so much crazy violence in a cartoon, right? And I just was always a Devilman fan and a Go Nagai fan after that. So I got those tattoos. And then after that, nothing else. All the rest are non-manga or comic related. Although I have been thinking about getting My Lovely Monster tattoo on my leg from the guy down the road. But because of the COVID situation, these last 2 years, I've been not wanting to go to any tattoo shops.
Right. See, I don't have any tattoos, but I thought at this point, I designed, when my wife and I got married, at first we said we're gonna get paired up tattoos is what and she wanted me to tattoo her name under my ring finger so that even if I took my ring off, I couldn't F around.
Yeah, you couldn't stick around.
You could feel the trust, can't you? but in the end, she decided to trust me. We decided to trust each other. I said, well, if I'm getting it, you're getting it, you know? But I'm, you know, and she said, okay, but anyway, we didn't, I designed the tattoo. I still have the design somewhere. It's way too gocha. It's got too many things happening.
Too much going on in it.
Too much going on. But now, and then later I was like, no, I'm going to get the Superman mark on my arm. And I'm like, a bit too Bon Jovi, you know, because he has
which is an awesome one, but it's also, I think that era has gone, you know? Yeah.
I mean, I would have got the Kingdom Come one, the Kingdom Comes Superman S, which I think is a really cool graphic. Yeah. But now I would be like, it would be like a panel, I think.
Yeah, you know, a panel, you got to find a good spot to put it where it, you know, it still keeps its shape and everything for a panel, right? I have this junk leg that's just got some random tattoos on it there where I could really just kind of put anything down there, and it's mostly horror stuff, bats and a couple other things. So kind of a skull thing going on. So I always thought, well, I could put Onimbo or maybe My Lovely Monster or something in there, but I'll get around to it maybe. Also, the older you get, the more the tattoos hurt. So I'm not in any hurry.
I am not, like, needles for me is something I've fought with even now when they're like, we're going to take some blood. And I was like, y'all have a cot, right? And they're like,
just in case.
We deal with people like you who don't like the thing. So I'm like laying down. I'm looking at pictures of my daughter. I'm thinking happy thoughts, but I'm not in the moment.
You're blocking it out.
So
Maybe a tattoo's not for you then.
I think I just have to draw it on. You know, just draw it on, change it up. All right, here we go. First manga you remember buying as a kid.
Man, first manga, well, first comic book at all. I remember one before Fritz the Cat, but I know it must have been one of those weird old Zap comics. My older brothers and sister, they had DC and Marvel sitting around, like they were 10, 11, 12 years older than me. So they had comics sitting around their rooms all the time, but I actually went and I remember it being one of those weird old Zap comics. It might have had Fabulous Freak Brothers on the cover, but one of those.
Was it Freddy and his cat and all that stuff?
Yes, exactly.
That's cool. All right. How were you first exposed to Japanese culture?
Other than we were speaking earlier before about my brothers watching Go-Go Speed Racer, or me waking up early in the morning to watch Star Blazers or something like that. But, those were all kind of in the American zeitgeist already. What really happened was I grew up a skateboarder, little skate rat. And I remember skating behind a tire shop behind the local college, which was Gonzaga University in Spokane, Washington. And I met a Japanese kid skating back there. He was a college kid and I was around 14 or 15 and he must have been around 18. And we started skateboarding together and ended up becoming friends. And he was there studying abroad for 4 years and we maintained friendships. We're still friends today. He lives down in Fujisawa in Kanagawa area. And because he was my first Japanese friend, through him, I got introduced to a lot of Japanese culture and stuff like that, and then to his other Japanese friends that were exchange students. And eventually when I went to college and I had to fill my foreign language requirements, I thought, I have a bunch of Japanese friends, Japanese language will be easy, be the easiest thing in the world. And that's how I fell down the Japanese language rabbit hole that eventually brought me over here. But really it was meeting my friend my friend Daisuke, way back in the day skateboarding.
Let me ask you a question related to that. When you made the decision, I'm going to study Japanese, from that point to the fact that the first time where you were actually speaking without thinking in English, what was that span?
Oh, it was a long time, because I remember going through the community college classes in the beginning, and then at actually going to another college, to Gonzaga, because they had the more upper intermediate level classes the community didn't offer. I remember getting language partners, but you would do that maybe 30 minutes in English, 30 minutes in Japanese once a week. And that whole thing, this is before, we didn't have Skype and we didn't have online learning and this stuff. So I remember, driving to school with flashcards, at red lights, looking through flashcards at red lights, trying to study for, vocabulary quizzes and stuff like that. So it really wasn't until 1997, the first time I came to Japan. I came for 2 months over a summer. And when I left after that and went back to America, I felt a little bit more comfortable. But again, that was conversational comfortable. It wasn't like sitting down.
But that's what I'm talking about, because that's when you have your foot in the door, is when you're thinking in Japanese and you come across a situation, you learn about it in Japanese, and that just widens that gap. I teach, so it's like I'm always trying to look for ways to get the method that worked for me, which is how, through comics and through non-traditional methods that suck. It's like I try to avoid those traditional methods. So one of the kind of things that I try to get my students to do is start with something like a simple concept like ouch, and then just flip it to ite, and then that's your word. And from now on, when you say ouch, and I started doing that because I started cussing in various languages, and then I would have to change it depending on who I was with. So I would be around Chinese people and say, I can't say that, so I gotta say this. And then, oh no, Cambodian guy's there. I'm gonna have to switch to Vietnamese. And oh no, there's Chang. I better
Switch
do
it up again.
yeah. So I was always like code switching in that method. And like once you get used to it and you have that phrase tied to that concept, the switch is there and you can flip it back and forth. And so I'd start with that one simple, hard, like strong idea, and then just spread it out.
Yeah, I mean, the best, when I give people advice on Japanese learning in particular, I always just say, just find ways to use it. Real situations. You'll screw up in real situations, and then you'll never, ever forget that screw up again. I remember calling a couple girls the first time I visited Japan. I was a young man. I was 19, 20, maybe just turned 20. And I remember I wanted to say that they were cute. So I said that they looked very kawaii-so. And which it means pitiful, which, because if you usually when you add so to an adjective, then it means looks like. But I didn't. My Japanese level was very low, and I never forgot that for the rest of my life. I learned that you say kawaii-rashi, and or something else, just kawaii, whatever. But so when I came back as a university student, as an exchange student, I spent very little time with the exchange students and a lot of time at standing bars and little dives around my university, just chatting with anyone who would chat with me. Students, salarymen coming home from work. And I learned a lot of my conversational Japanese that way. And of course, in uni, we had to study, coursework. So I learned my kanji and, my reading and writing through the university road. But
yeah, we didn't have a lot of classes. I mean, like I was able to join a Japanese class in high school. We had a special magnet school. And so I took French, which is pretty typical, for a year and didn't learn a lick. My teacher had a very strong Southern accent. Bonjour. And merci beaucoup.
Nice.
It wasn't that bad, but it was.
Sounds more like she's from Louisiana.
Yeah, in my memory, it's pretty bad. But then I took Chinese, and it was an intensive course, and it actually wasn't that intense, but it was a good foundation, for when I started Japanese, because I already had a whole bunch of kanji. Like the idea of, incorporating these completely alien things into my communication I wasn't afraid of it. And so that year, I had a really good teacher who I personally did not like, and she did not like me. She was very clear. She said, out of the blue, she said, "I'm going to grade you fairly." And why would you say that? Yeah, because she doesn't like me.
Yeah.
But she did grade me fairly. And she had an approach that was like multifaceted, and it gave me like the base that I needed to learn on my own, which is, that's the way to go, pick up a comic and meet some friends. And for me, music was huge though. Music was huge. I was learning new songs all the time. And then when I found a karaoke bar in Atlanta, I went there one night. I knew like maybe 2 songs at the time. And the lady there said, "You got to work here." I was like, all right. All right, I'll talk to the boss at the Chinese restaurant there I work. And I said, can I leave here like an hour early so I can work this other job? And there are Cambodians who are used to working like 7 jobs in the first place. They're like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Unfortunately, I'm an awful singer. I have a speaking voice, not a singing voice. But that was, my wife.
Do you like it? Do you like it? Do you like singing?
I cannot sing. I do not like it.
Do you enjoy it? I mean, do you enjoy like just expressing or letting it out? Because it doesn't matter. That's not what karaoke is about. It's not like, hey, listen to how good I am. It's take this, world.
I do like a good group song. I always feel so on the spot, and I played music. I have a bass guitar over here, and I grew up really interested in music and playing some bass and some percussion and stuff like that. But singing was just never in my cards. But it's a great way to learn a foreign language. Doing karaoke is awesome. But
Yeah, like I know Japanese friends, and my wife is this kind of person. Like they're like, I'm gonna practice this song, and they will not practice another damn song until they have that song perfected. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I practiced 100 songs,
Mm.
and I got a little bit better at all of them, a little bit at a time. Picked up different stuff. The Blue Hearts, which is like one of the premier Japanese kind of punk bands, their lyrics are very like conversational. So I learned a lot of grammatical phrases and a lot of like passive voice stuff that I remember when I first came to Japan. My first boss was like, you know, you're really good at that passive, like the, I know, ukirareru, that kind of, like, I never got a handle on those, but you seem to have a handle on it. It was those Blue Heart songs. You know?
Yeah, and that's actually, passive voice in Japanese is one of the biggest challenges for English speakers learning Japanese. At least for me, it was. You know, I often make mistakes.
Well, I mean, there's some that like I just can't get it, but I just can't get it out.
Just can't spit it out.
All right, let's say calm. Let's go right into it. Calm or Garo?
I prepared a little bit because we talked a little bit about some of these questions. I actually was thinking about it. I'm like, I want to say calm because, as you know, I'm a big Hino Hideshi fan and a big horror manga fan. And it really, Hino Hideshi helped me get back into manga some years ago. I'd picked up a copy of I forget, maybe Panorama of Hell or something like that. And I was like, man, it's so fun. And I just really started getting into horror manga again. And it had been a long time since I'd really read any horror manga. I think before that I'd been into like some samurai stuff. But I do have this one, the Garo, December 1966.
Move back a little bit. I want to see at the bottom. Oh, scooch it. Okay,
there we go.
Okay, it's mentioned the Mizuki Shigeru story too, and it's got the. Oh, nice. Yeah, great.
And the final story in it is an introduction story, which is by Hino Hideshi, but before he was Hino Hideshi.
Oh, really? Wow, that's cool.
And you know what? No, I'm so sorry. It was this one. Sorry, I have two of them out. No, it was the 67. The October 67 is the one with the first Hino Hideshi in it.
Okay.
The other one was Shirato Sanpei thing that I was using for something else. Sorry about that. But yeah, it was this. You can tell by the lettering and the artistry.
Oh, wow, look at that. I didn't know he had another name. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, and then after that, he ended up changing his name to Hino Hideshi. Wow. But to be honest, you know, this past couple years, I've been getting more into the older Garo stuff and a lot of the Gekiga stuff and the Shirato Sanpei stuff. And as you know, you've seen maybe in a couple of my videos and I've seen in yours, you know, a lot of the guys that emerged out of Garo went on to do just excellent things. And the more that I've fallen down the Garo hole, which I always call it, because once you go Garo, you never go back. I've started accumulating more and more and more of the Gekiga era stuff. So I'd have to say calm Garo, leaning more towards Garo these days.
Yep. I feel you. Great answer. So, and these two questions lead right into each other. How have your tastes in manga evolved or devolved?
Well, besides just the Garo and the Gekiga stuff that I've been getting more into recently, you know, a big thing was I'm really into the Hibari stuff. Like Hibari and, you know, Hibari comics, lemon comics, horror comics from the 60s through the 90s, especially 60s, 70s, and 80s. I really love, but I've accumulated quite a few. They are getting to the point where they're not cheap. You know, it's hard to find good deals on them. I was talking to one of my local bookstore guys, guys at the bookstore, the owner of the bookstore over in Asagaya near me, and he was saying that recently they've just become so popular, and he attributes it to more people being at home, working from home, having more free time, and it's been driving prices up for a lot of those. So I had, just out of necessity, I've had to branch out into some other stuff that I didn't know if I'd be interested in, but then you start picking up some of the stuff like Ishii Takashi, some really wild stuff like that, or some Hirata Hiroshi, some stuff that I wasn't reading in the past, but started getting into now. And then once you start going down that rabbit hole,
it's from my point of view, it's like you're already like on like a different level, you know, because I'm still like surfing the lower echelons of the more, a little bit more well-known stuff. And some of those guys like Hirata and like some of those guys, I'm like, I'm gonna get there, but I'm not there yet. I wanna hang around here and learn a little more about this before I move on, because otherwise I just, you know, I won't be able to stop myself from wanting to buy every damn thing in the world.
That is a problem. And what I try to do is I'll dip my toe in something, but I will try not to have my toe in too many things at once. So, because I'm compulsive. Yeah, I think you and I alike can be a little bit compulsive. So once I go down that rabbit hole of like, you know, Kaze Shinobu, and then I have to get it all. I have to track it all down. I just really want to track it all down. Someone like, you know, like Umez has so much stuff out there, or Hino has so much stuff out there. There's no way you're going to track it all down. But recently I got into Tanima Yumeji, which is a shoujo horror. And I just had a couple things around my room. And then I realized I had a couple things in anthologies. And then I realized, oh, well, that's cheap online. Got a couple more things. And then, oh wait, this person's selling 6 volumes for $50. I got to get that.
Oh, wow.
then next thing you know, you're down a big rabbit hole, right?
Yeah, that's so. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing where I just been really lucky, is that after moving here to Kumamoto, after being in Tokyo, when I had all the access, I didn't take advantage of it. I was not collecting things that were actually like quality collectibles. I was doing UFO catcher shit because I did not want to go home, and because I waited way too long to get a divorce from my first wife, and it was starting to, you know, start to really kick in that what am I doing with all this plastic crap? It's because I just don't want to go home. I said, yeah, I'm moving out. And I don't like my life anymore. I'm moving out. And and so and then when I started a new relationship and it got really serious, my girlfriend, who became my wife, she said, you got to do something about all that plastic crap you have in that room. And I was like, I'm gonna make, and 2 things happened. That happened, and also my dad, I was talking to him on the phone, and he said, hey, do you know that show Hoarders? And I'm like, no. He's like, that's you. I was like, what are you talking about? And I looked at a commercial for it, and I was like, oh shit. Oh no, I'm hurting, ouch, you know. And so I threw away 52 bags of plastic crap, 52 full garbage bags.
That is a lot.
And I got rid of the stuff that I was hardest to throw away. I got rid of that stuff first, and then it got a lot easier. Star Wars stuff was used to like totally no value. Nobody wanted any of my stuff. You know, like my friends would go to these toy shows once in a while, and we would all bring our stuff to sell. All I had was boxes of 100 yen, 50 yen crap, you know, like throw this in, why not? And they're like selling 20,000 yen figures and statues and stuff. And I'm like, y'all are better at this than me.
Yeah. That's one thing that I've always, the Sotheby hole or the toy collecting, figure collecting, I've always tried to avoid that. I do have a couple here and there, that are related to just like mangaka I really like, but I really try to stay out of that because that's a money drain once you get into it.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I do try to do with my manga purchasing is I try to buy things that I know I could resell as an investment for my future. But I do try to keep that in mind when I am purchasing stuff.
That's a pretty good, like I have a lot of stuff which is like, unless I found somebody like you who was in the same area who would appreciate it for the what's inside and not the condition. A lot of the stuff that I have is just not really resellable. I mean, not to a regular store because it's just too beat up. It's
and
like
Japanese like pristine condition in their
right.
books, in their used books.
But it sucks because there's a lot of books which you'll never find in that condition anymore. They're just too old, printed on too cheap stuff, but still good stuff that needs to be I don't know, which I'm interested in. And so I was really lucky to find this one bookstore down south. I go there every once in a while. That last big haul video I did.
Yes, great haul.
Yeah, I can't, well, you would kill me if you knew how little I paid for some really great stuff.
I don't even want to know. It'll just make me jealous.
I don't want to get, I can't survive the death threats. I'd be too, So from a, I see, so that Hideshi kind of led you into the dark side and and
yes.
He has that good balance. But like him and like what's her name, Kaneko,
Inuki Kaneko.
Yeah. So those two, it was too jarring for me at first. The cutesy characters and the abject horror. Like for me, I was like, I just can't put those. I want my cute to be sarcastic and dark, like material wise, but not like bloody, and and then I want my horror to be in that. So that's how I was. But, I'm not that anymore.
So that's what changes. Like Hino is always just grotesque, decay, dark, but then you have like the Kojima Miyako or the Inuki Kaneko that are like more that shoujo, very cute. The stories are about like but then there's some grotesque stuff in there as well, of course. But then recently, that's why I was mentioning Tanima Yumeji earlier, was because very, very cute. Usually a big part of the beginnings of them are just, for the first 40 pages is all just like love triangles, like school club information and stuff like that. And then just completely grotesque. Worms coming out of heads, people being decapitated, limbs, and the shock value in there is just so deep.
Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Yeah, dogs, cats living together, mass hysteria. This usually doesn't happen, but it just happened. Oh no.
Hey.
Here, let me get rid of this monster really quick.
What a cutie.
Well, we can edit that out or leave it in. I don't mind either way. It happens.
So I'm going to give you a little intro. Is like, I remember, this is a long time ago, over 20 years ago. And a student of mine brought this one comic, and it was so surreal and bizarre and just crazy that I got into this one artist for a very short time. But this artist would just do the same gag again and again and again, and that was the gag, that he would just do the same gag. And I'm talking about MANGATARO.
Yes, yes.
So I want to know how you got into MANGATARO.
So actually, I have the first ones I got. Luckily, we have a theater here in Koenji where I live called Koenji, and once a month they'll have a pop-up used book fair inside. And when I was there one day, I don't know why I was over there. Maybe we were out to lunch. They have a little cafe on the second floor. I was just looking through all the stuff and I found this 3-volume series of
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Koshien,
Yeah.
which he is most famous for because they actually did a movie spin-off called Battlefield Baseball, which is a very B movie with a bunch of
Because I wouldn't
prosthetics.
So I wouldn't consider that like that he's most famous for, but yeah, the fact that it was made into a movie means that at least it has more exposure for like Japanese movie fans overseas, etc. But like for me, I think it was his other jump stuff, like the Journey to the West one. I think that one was pretty hot at the time. The stuff
Manyuki.
Yeah.
Manyuki. Chinyuki was also made into a movie as well.
I mean, that was the one that I'd seen, like I'd recognized on the Jump covers of Jump and stuff. But for me, it was like the one that I think it was Kusoman shit.
Yes.
Shit comic, shit manga.
Yes, Kusoman.
That's the one with the guy's grandmother. She has the underwear on her head, and she's like, Shinji, where's my underwear?
Yeah, exactly. I think in that one, she comes to his classroom to stand in the back of the class because he'd been bad in class or something like that. And I think what attracted me to these was because to be honest, I don't read sports manga. Never been really into sports or sports manga at all. It's a little bit of fighting stuff I like, but as we've talked about previously, I do like a little bit of kakutogi or a little bit of MMA stuff. And of course, everyone who came to Japan in the early 2000s loved K1 and Pride. So, but it was just so weird. The art style is just so weird. You look at the cover, right? And then I was like, well, I gotta find, then I went over to Mandarake and then found some other Mangataro releases, and then it just spiraled out of control. And I ended up buying I have almost everything that he has released in tankobon or in the larger sizes, and actually was just at his art exhibition at Parco in Shibuya last week, which I did a short video on for his Manxi Gataro. Not Banksy, but Manxi Gataro exhibition, which was an exhibition of 40 of his works never seen before until they found his dead body in his shabby apartment. Or the liner notes say.
But he's still alive though, right?
But he's still alive, yes. He is such a troll. He's the original, I mean, maybe not the original, but for me, just the original troll as far as gag manga goes,
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what, like, the one comic, it was like, I'm reading the same 2 pages for like 30 pages or something, and it was like,
yeah,
I'm totally we didn't call it back then, but that's what it was. He was totally trolling the readers.
Exactly. I mean, if you go through a lot of his releases, you can see the same picture of the same truck running over the same people. Or and they always explode. The people are different each time, but the picture of the truck crashing into the wall is always the same. He's probably gotten away with 50 pages of just repeating that same panel over and over.
I think that the reason that that I was reading, and it wasn't a whole lot, doesn't compare to your collection at all, but the reason that I even got more than 1 or 2 books is because I'd kind of connected with my students over it, like we were really connecting with inappropriate comics, It was Mangataro and Enomoto, which was in mourning at the time. And the art style is like pristine, but it's so bizarre and like Dadaist and grotesque too. It's
grotesque.
Every time somebody mentions
Enomoto, the father's son?
Yes.
Yeah.
Every time somebody mentions curry, like poop will appear, like it'll just like fall from the sky. And there's one whole episode where it was like, what do you want for dinner? How about curry? And then a poop is like just lands on his face. And he's in mid smile, and like Yeah, I'm not really into poop.
You're not a scatologist, but
No.
I think the other thing is, like we're always kids at heart, and growing up as a kid, like I never could have imagined reading manga or comic books that had the kind of content that MANGATARO has. I mean, not at all. And even now, I'll have it laying around. I'm like, I gotta hide this from the kids. I can't just have this sitting out on the table.
Well, like I'm from also like I'm like from the left hook of the Bible Belt. It's like I'm right in there, and except for my family, everyone around us was like church going. I had to like flag rides from other families to go to church because I wanted to know the answers to the hard questions. Like, how much does a pastor make? No, I'm just so it was very, believing in God was a given. And so, and because I was asking questions that nobody was comfortable with.
I got kicked out of Sunday school quite a few times for that.
Yeah. When I remember when one Sunday school teacher said, Jesus hates teachers. And I don't know what she was I think she was trying to do an anti-science thing. I don't know. But I said, wasn't Jesus a teacher? He was a rabbi, right? So he's a teacher. And yeah.
Similar, I got kicked out for there is no way you can fit that many animals on an ark. And I got the hallway treatment really quick.
Oh, must have been a big ass ark.
Yeah. So yeah, MANGATARO, I just thought it was so wild, and then I just started collecting it one after the other. And also, I'm a bit compulsive. Once I get into something and decide I want to really get into it, then I gotta get it as many as you can. Gotta collect them all, as they say.
Yeah, you know what? I played the first Pokemon because I had 2 Game Boys. I'd borrowed one, and I bought the blue one.
Okay.
And friend of mine had green, and then I borrowed red, and I just kind of got them all, and then I never went back to Pokemon again. I was like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, it was never one that I was really into. Like I lived as a minimalist I try not to collect too much. Once you start traveling overseas, you start living outside of your home country, then you start to realize, especially in Japan, where it's, you're very small living conditions when you're a student, especially, right? Then it's hard to collect stuff, which is on the flip side, which is why we can buy pristine manga at low prices, because people will read it once and sell it.
But what you're saying is you don't know how to turn a pile of books into a bed. That's what you're telling me.
Exactly. I didn't know how to do that. Or maybe I wanted more space around my bed because I was single or something like that. But
I lived in I lived on the 5th floor of a 4-story apartment building. Like, there's 4 regular stories, and there's these 2 little boxes on top.
Yes.
I lived in one of the boxes, and it had an electric bed that would go up, and I just kept it up and used the ladder, and then I put my TV and then boxes of shit all around the room. And yeah, I never learned that lesson about minutes. When I moved from Georgia to Missouri, I took too much crap. And when I moved from Missouri to Seattle, I took too much crap. I had a big old trunk. I assumed my aunt and uncle were going to meet me at the bus station and pick me up and take me back to their house. And not knowing they don't have either a car or a driver's license. And I was dragging this huge trunk. Sparks were flying, and it's heavy. And I'm like, because books, I couldn't, let go of books, and dragging. And basically I was helped by a couple of Mormons.
That gave you a lift?
Yeah, they gave me a lift. And I was like, thank you, Mormons.
Yeah, you can say what you want about the Mormon religion, but every Mormon I've ever met has always been so nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
The nicest.
Nice people. Yeah.
Nicest.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. But yeah, their beliefs are, Woo! woo. But anyway.
I mean, yeah. I'll leave it alone, but.
So speaking of the arc, okay, there's a flood, right? So
Okay.
and I'm stealing your questions. I know I am, but there's a flood. Which comic do you grab?
I thought about this a lot, and it's really hard to choose. I have a few comics that are worth a lot more, but going back to Hino Hideshi again, I probably would grab Jigoku Kozo, because for one, it got me really back into collecting manga again. Incidentally, about 7 years ago, when my daughter was born, we were making a move, and I gave away every book that I had.
Wow.
Every manga, every book. The only things I kept is I kept Tekkon Kinkurito, the 3 tankobons, and I kept one other thing. Oh, what was it? Sorry, I can't remember, but I remember just keeping just a handful of books, and everything else I gave away to a friend on Instagram. Her husband came over, and he was a delivery driver, came over to my house and just picked up boxes of books, and I just started fresh. Because we were moving places, I didn't want to deal with it. I'd read all of it already. I had a big collection of English novels as well. That it's like you read James Ellroy once, you're probably not going to read it again, right?
They weren't sparking joy.
They were not sparking joy, and I was going through one of those kind of Marie Kondo existential crises, and this particular and Hino Hideshi in general really got me back into manga collecting, which has consumed much of my life. And so if there's a flood, I would probably take this with me.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
All right. If you could meet any mangaka, alive or dead, which one would it be?
Yeah, this is a tough one. Although I'm a big Hino fan, I've seen enough of his interviews. I think I've got it. Junji Ito as well. Yeah, I've got it. It would probably have to be someone who is no longer with us. KOGA Shinichi. I mean, I would like it to be either like an Umez, a KOGA Shinichi, or a Hama Shinji. Someone who started in that kashihon era and lived all the way through the 70s, 80s, the 90s boom, where they're working on TV shows and stuff, all the way up to, some of them into the 2000s. So it would probably KOGA, maybe. Because for one, he's not with us anymore, and I just like to hear about all those like little stories of all the changes that happened from that kashihon era and some of them even grew up on the kamibaishi, right? And then into the hibari era, and some of those guys went over to work with a lot of the, not so much with Calm or with Garo, but more, some of them did. It's because I mentioned Hino before, or I think Morohoshi worked with Calm a little bit and stuff, but just the whole progression from the early days up to the modern days and everything they experienced, all those ups and downs would be interesting to hear, I think.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's like eventually, I'm gonna get Mr. Harada, the guy who lets me borrow all this great kashihon stuff. Because he's from the same hometown, Omuta, he's an expert on KOGA, he's an expert on Hagiomoto, and so he has big collection of stuff. He's got a whole bunch of kaidan and all kaidan and stuff like that.
I love him.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna get him on the show, and I'm gonna pick his brain. But right now he is taking care. His daughter is giving birth to another child, and so him and his wife are babysitting the older one. He's like, I can't do anything, because I was just trying to give him back the one stuff I borrowed, and he's like, I can't deal with anything until December.
Yeah, nothing until December.
So that's gonna be, and so I'm gonna ask you, like, give me all the questions. Give me all the questions that you want to ask.
Definitely. And I've asked you about this a little bit before, which I might ask you later, but there's a lot of great horror mangaka came out of that area. And I always wonder why and how. So I'll definitely come up with some questions for him.
Cool. Okay. Now, I don't think we need to go through all these.
No, we can end it there.
But I want to ask one more thing. Okay.
Okay.
And that is, have you ever drawn or written comics?
You know what? I always loved drawing as a kid. I had a string of unfortunate events that put me out of art. And I mean, never completely out of art. So in high school, I had a horrible art teacher that didn't like me. I think that I was a skate rat, a punk rock skate rat, and she just didn't like me. I remember my mother even having to go to the school because I liked art a lot, but she just didn't like me. And then, you know, like as a kid, you're into like skateboard graphics and graffiti and all this graffiti art and stuff like that. I was always into that kind of stuff, and I always, you know, dabbled in all that stuff. And then when I was going to go to college, I thought, oh, I'll study art. First thing my dad said, he's like, I'm not paying for that shit. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I can't pay for it either. So what am I gonna...
My mom was a bit more politic. She's like, well, you got to have your fallback though. So I was in high school, and she's like, you know, you gotta do your math classes so that you can study computers. That's going to be the thing. And she was right, but that's got to be, you know, you got to have your fallback. And so I went to college with studio art illustration, and but in high school, I found very quickly math was not going to be my fallback. I mean, computers were not going to be my thing. It's like I went to the computer club to check it out, and they're like, do you even have a computer? I was like, no, I was hoping to learn stuff. They're like we're already making programs and stuff. You know, I felt like I did not belong here, and they're not very welcoming. So I went chess club.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Me too. I was never a STEM kid, you know, STEM guy, a STEM anything, you know, science and math, chemistry, anything like that. So since I couldn't because I started off in the community colleges and then transferred to university because it was a cheaper route. And instead of going through the AFA program, I just went through the AA program, not Alcoholics Anonymous, but
because I also I failed to get my AA or AFA. I went to a 2-year college just for my second year to get. It was one of the times where we really a meeting of the minds between me and my parents, that we were sick of each other and that we needed to come apart. And so for 1 year, I went to a school in Western North Carolina in the mountains with like 100 Japanese exchange students.
Oh, great.
It was like a small school, but there was this foundation in Atlanta called the East West Foundation. And basically they said, we will place all your loser kids who are crap at the TOEIC, and we'll pay some money to the colleges. You pay us a lot of money, and we'll pay the colleges, and then they're going to set up programs just for your crappy kids. And so throughout the 80s and early 90s, you had this whole glut of Japanese exchange students filling out all these small colleges in the mostly in the South. But I was in this, like, I don't know what you call it, not pressure cooker, but just like a kind of sandbox where I could listen, practice, learn about Japanese like every damn day. And it was the first time I didn't have a job since I was 15. But I ended up getting a job because the girlfriend I had at the time said, you should come to Japan. And I was like, I'm up for that. And she's like, but you gotta earn the money. And I was like, I will do that.
Sounds similar. My community college, because I went to the University of Washington, but I transferred from a community college in Spokane, Washington. And next to our community college was a school called Mukogawa, which was also, it was an exchange. It was where Japanese students would come to study for 6 months, learn language, and then go into the college system. So then after that, they would go to the community college or Gonzaga University, University of Washington. But I think that it was directed at high school students. So it was mostly seniors in high school that were planning to study at an American college later. And because of proximity, because I just started studying Japanese, then I started tutoring over there. And that was my part-time job, was tutoring English to the kids over there. And then that helped me with my Japanese learning as well. So it's similar.
I kidnapped a whole group of high school boys in Seattle. They were like walking around, and I said, I started talking to them and showing them around. I brought them to my uncle's house, and I showed them this laser disc of this animated movie, which is like War of the Cockroaches, which is like real life and animation mixed. The Japanese is like, y'all don't know this? Y'all gotta know this. And I was, I don't know what memories are in those boys' heads, like this, like almost 3 decades later. But I bet they're like, you know what? I'm not sure if that was a dream or not, but there's this strange man who just said, like, y'all gotta watch this. And made us watch a movie about cockroaches.
Over at his uncle and aunt's house.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah. So yeah, I really wanted to know that. That was I might have one more. Who's your, what is it? Okay. This one, let's get real. So what's a comic you definitely not only want your kids to read, but like you hope they fall in love with it?
Oh gosh, that is a tough one. They're already, even though only 5 and 7, almost 8, the oldest one loves drawing manga, loves reading manga. The younger one, the 5-year-old, he loves yokai everything. So he has all these yokai zukan or encyclopedias and dictionaries of yokai. So they're off on a good start so far. God, that's a tough question. Something that I would really want them to read.
I think the answer is right over your shoulder, that grandma on your shelf.
MANGATARO? It actually would desensitize them to everything else in the future,
Y'all gonna be, if y'all can survive that, you're gonna be okay.
Yeah, start hard and then you can go any direction that you want from there. That's my answer then. Yeah, anything that they're into and they can relate to. I don't force anything down their throats. I let them kind of just explore things on their own, but I also try not to expose them to anything too hardcore, of course, out of my manga collection. But my son always likes to, I was watching Eko Eko Azaraku, the old 1990s poorly animated series. And I was watching
the animated one.
Oh, it's really poor quality. And sometimes it's not even animated. They just kind of move the cells around on the screen to pretend like they're moving, but they're not, they're just jiggling. And he liked that so much that once in a while he'll sneak in my room and start reading a little bit of Eko Eko Azaraku. And I think, it's a little bit tough, but whatever. It's not too gory or too gruesome,
Yeah, there's like, it's not in the story at all, but like there's some imagery that Koga used, which is, it's very like triggering, and very very problematic. It's not part of the story at all. It's not part of the character. It's just, he takes shocking images and he puts his character in that situation, and, and there's a lot of situations that we take for granted that everybody knows these are horribly shocking and problematic situations that sometimes in Japan, it didn't quite come across. Like I had to take a whole year of students and say, all right, y'all need to learn about what Hitler's about, because the way that you are, the way that you're talking about Hitler it's really too lighthearted. you don't seem to have a concept. So I know that's what that's kind of from, and I'm not excusing it, but it is something. It's an actual problem that they don't have quite that global information. And honestly, neither did I when it comes to stuff that didn't happen in American history. Like I did not. There's all kinds of things that I did not know about, and I'm sure there's still tons that I still don't know about that I could, but it was that kind of thing is like, yeah, I wouldn't want my daughter to, I don't know how to, I have to think about how to answer those hard questions before
I know
show her.
it really is tough. It's like on one hand, you don't want to, I mean, it's out there. And like, say there's a manga or something, it's out there, it's been made. It's not, you don't want to censor or, like pretend like it doesn't exist. But then at the same time, the content that was put out in the 70s and the content that's acceptable now, it's a lot. There's a lot difference. I mean, as you said with Koga, sometimes there'll be something like a random someone getting their clothes torn off that has nothing to do with the plot or nothing to do with the story. Just that girl got her clothes torn off right there in a
What time is it? Oh, it's titty time,
Exactly. Just to keep those pages turning, But which, I mean, depending on the genre today, it still happens, of course. But yeah, I mean, I think sometimes you just have to look at it as, oh, that's just a product of that time, of that era.
I try to, I try to mix, like, I think of it sometimes like this, is that it's not that I'm censoring, but like there's other creators and other works that I can focus. I'm going to give those priority. And when I have a much better, like, I guess, leg to stand on, like when I have when my approach to that problematic stuff has solidified more, then I'll be more comfortable presenting and talking about it and giving it the context it deserves. I just feel like I don't feel like I'm there, like I don't have the sophisticated take on it. I'm still, it's something that I grew up in the 80s with, like with a bunch of school movies who are like, hey, let's lose our virginity, even if we have to trick people into it.
Some of the content that we grew up on is much different than the content the kids are growing up on now. That's for sure.
That's rape. No.
Yeah.
Kind of is.
We didn't call them roofies. They didn't call them roofies. They called them Spanish fly, right? I mean, there's a different connotation. One sounds fun. The other one sounds rapey.
The other one was advertised in the back of Hustler and We.
Oh, jeez. Which you don't want to see nowadays. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So, all right, are you ready to flip the
Yes, flip it. Here,
So thanks for watching. And if you want to see part 2, please head over to Koenji Shawn Reviews YouTube channel. And I hope you enjoy it.